Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, it's good morning. Adam Frick here with Folsom TV. I have one of the first candidates that we're going to interview in our series called Coffee. What did I call it? I called it Coffee and Conversation with a candidate for City Council. So our first one here today is my new friend, Scott Bailey. Scott, you're a 59-year-old, born and raised in Sacramento, a sixth-generation Californian. You fell in love with Folsom when your dad started bringing you up here to go sailing on Folsom Lake, and you'd stop at the Big Dip for a burger. The Big Dip, I don't know if you guys remember that, it's now the El Rosa Blanca?
Yeah.
Is that what it is now? Yeah. Very cool. Your mom used to bring you here to visit the Folsom Zoo and attend lectures from the crazy zookeeper that used to let newborn bear cubs sleep in the bed.
Little baby bear, this big.
Little baby bear. Your grandpa John worked at Folsom Prison as a teacher in the early 50s and moved his family to a home on Dean Way. Now, did he get to meet Johnny Cash?
I don't know. That would be a great question.
That would be a great story if that happened.
I'm not sure if anybody's alive that could still tell me that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So after college at Cosumnes River College and CSUS, you completed the Sacramento Sheriff's Training Academy in 1982.
Long time ago.
You chose to graduate in a Folsom police uniform and began a 35-year period of volunteer service to the city of Folsom as a reserve officer.
Correct.
All right. You also started your day job career as an account manager consultant in the dental industry, where you are still employed.
Yes.
All right. And in 1983, you married Lynn and purchased your first home in 1986 in the Willow Creek neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And in 1989, you and Lynn started raising a family of 3 children. Your oldest, now almost 30. Your youngest is 21.
Correct.
All right. That's some information about Scott. Take it away, Scott. So, what do you like about Folsom? And I mean, we got a little backstory. Anything you want to add to on the story of your life here in Folsom?
Sure. A lot of stuff. First thing is, I think it's always good to answer the questions why I'm running. Mm-hmm. And well, first of all, my favorite show's Big Bang Theory, and in Sheldon Cooper's great line, "No, I'm not crazy. My mom had me tested." But I gave 35 years to this city so far, and wore the Folsom PD uniform. And that was more or less a volunteer job for 35 years. Very, very, very few paychecks on that. Very few W-2s.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. And the stories I could tell you from 1983 and forward, maybe I get a chance to tell a few of those today. But you know, I really enjoyed serving the community and serving the city that I love so much. I credit my parents, especially my father, for instilling the spirit of volunteerism into me. I like to tell people I'm a lifelong volunteer. And when I was a child, I mean, even before Cub Scouts, I can remember my parents were bringing me here and there because they volunteered a lot of places, and we did a lot of work for different charity groups and things. But through scouting, that's a huge part of the Boy Scout guidelines, is to serve your community. And we always were taught to leave everything better than what we found it. Mm-hmm. And fast forward to my own boys and my daughter. We were involved in Girl Scouts as well. My oldest boy came extremely close to making Eagle Scout. My youngest boy didn't attain Eagle Scout, and very proud of all 3 of them. But as an adult scout leader for 22 years in this city, with Cub Scout packs and Boy Scout troops, I always pushed all the boys to serve their community. Everything from the Veterans Day parades to every camp out we ever went on, you know, we always made campground improvement projects part of our weekend. And we always left, if there was not firewood in place for the next campers, we would always provide it for them and leave the campsite with a camp clean and ready to go. So it's just been instilled in me. Through the law enforcement, of course, I grew to love this community. I watched it grow. I think it was about 23,000 people population when I started here. Now it's almost 80,000. So I've watched a heck of a lot of growth here. The edge of town was right over here at the McDonald's, between the McDonald's and the bank at East Bidwell and Wales. And beyond that, it was just rural roads out to the freeway. So it's been fun to watch it grow. Been extremely impressed with the city. And if anybody's seen any of my previous statements, I love this city and I love almost everything about it. So for the last 5 years of my time in the Folsom PD uniform, I volunteered actually to work as a bailiff at the city council meetings. It was a great idea from a lieutenant that's long since retired, but he thought it'd be great, instead of having a regular patrolman sitting there, he thought it'd be great if the reserves would take that on as a function and rotate through, and each of us take a different meeting. And that way he could get a patrolman back out on the streets, which of course is beneficial. There was groans in the room, and I raised my hand and said, you know what, I've always liked local politics and local government. I said, so let's not work on a rotational basis. I said, I'm going to do all of them. And I think everybody was quite relieved, because it's a big job to sit there every couple of weeks and maintain security and run the bailiff job there. But that gave me a very unique position to observe all the goings-on of the council and to get to know all the city staff, the senior city staff, which is required to attend all those meetings. I saw an awful lot in those 5 years, and was there for actually 5 of the 6 years that the 2035 general plan was discussed, and got to see them really hash that out and really craft it into the piece it is now. So I've always enjoyed local government. I became pretty good friends with Mayor Miklos, Councilmember Moore, and Sheldon and Howell, and all the city staff. Sitting there for 5 years, there's many times that I was listening to an issue and I just wanted to fill out a blue card and get up and speak. There's many times that I wanted to raise my hand and vote on a subject, but of course that wasn't my role.
Right.
So a lot of people pushed me to run, and I feel that I've got the experience, not only living here for 35 years, or I've lived here for 32 years, but working here for 35. And I think I've got a good historical perspective on this city. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of good, a little bit of bad, and a little bit of ugly.
Yeah.
And so I think I can bring a lot to the council. I'm incredibly objective, and I credit my police training for that. One of my lines that my friends will often hear me say is that there's at least 2 sides to every story. And as officers, we're trained to get the other side and to objectively evaluate the situation and take the appropriate action. I'm also very much a facilitator, in that my day job, working in the dental industry, I consider that to be my biggest role as a facilitator. My customers and my clients come to me with so many different things, and they come to me and they want to know how I can help. I just got some issues this morning that I have to deal with, but I'm the guy that can make things happen, and I have learned to bring talented people together to work towards the common goal, whatever it is. So, and with my scout training, of course, everything I've touched, I always leave in a better condition. So at this point, I wish to continue my service to Folsom, which is my home.
Great. So one of your things, I mean, you've said this a couple of times, and I believe in this too, because I'm a trail user. and I hike in the mountains. So I always tell my boys when we go out, let's leave the trail cleaner than when we got it.
Good.
So
Outstanding.
I hear that from you, and I translate that to come into Folsom as city council and leave it better than when you found it.
Absolutely. I've got two slogans for my campaign. One is let's make it better, and the other is let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Because I love the way Folsom is rolling right now. So.
Great. Before we get to the issues, I want to give credit to the place here. So
Yeah.
you're probably wondering where we are. Some of you may know because that's a beautiful outdoor patio. What you can't see are the grapes hanging from the ceiling here. But we are, where are we?
We're at the Kebab House in the corner of Wales and East Bidwell. My very good friend Rocky is the owner here and has been here as long as I can remember. And it's one of my favorite places to eat, and all of my family. And whenever we bring somebody from out of town, this is a destination spot for us. So
He's very accommodating. I said, he asked me if I wanted anything. I said I'd love some coffee, and he brought me Greek coffee, which I have to say I've never had Greek coffee before, and it is fabulous. And of course, he brought me, what would that be called?
baklava.
That is baklava. Okay,
Yeah.
so it just shows you how out of Greek touch I am. So let's talk about some of the issues that are happening here in Folsom. Now I know that there's a lot of talk about a lot of things, but one of the things that you wanted to talk about today is campaign finance reform.
Correct.
And actually there's three: term limits, campaign finance reform, and city sales tax increase that was just proposed not too long ago.
Right.
That's going to be on the ballot in November.
It's on the ballot. Yep.
Yep. So let's first talk about the campaign finance reform, and that seems to tie right in with the term limits.
It does. And if I'm not mistaken, of the 11 of the 12 candidates that were at the forum at the Harris Center a few weeks ago were actually in favor of campaign finance reform and increasing the donation amount to $500. Under the current rules, it's $150 maximum donation per person or PAC to an individual candidate. And the concept behind raising it to $500 was to, quote, keep big money out of the race. And it seems somewhat counterintuitive, but I do understand the concept behind it. For me, raising $150 per person has not been a problem. And I'm proud to say I've had a lot of very fine Folsom people and other people, friends and co-workers, donate to my campaign because they believe in me. And I'm very happy that so far I've raised enough money to cover my campaign. I've gotten a friend that had a great printing operation in his home to print all my flyers for the cost of the paper. I got another very good dear friend to develop my website. So it's been going great. I've already purchased my lawn signs. I've already purchased my large signs. I've paid fees just to get on the ballot. Is I think it's a $650 fee, and then there's another fee to have some other things. But so far I still have a surplus in my campaign funds, and so you can't exactly say big money has been an issue for me.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the downhill slide of this campaign at this point, and funding is not a problem. The issue I have with it is that yes, it hasn't been changed for decades, and yes, inflation's come up a lot. I understand all that, but I just feel that running for city council really shouldn't be easy, and I think keeping it at $150 encourages the candidates to get out and talk to a lot of people and to get to know a lot of people, and
Right.
it encourages them to, I think it takes, to raise $5,000, for example, it's either 10 people or it's 33 1/3 people.
Right.
So I think, you know, it's great to get out and talk to people. That's what I've been doing, walking door to door for quite some time now, and handing out my flyers.
So you want to keep it the same?
I want to keep it the same. Yep, I do. I'm disappointed to see that some of my fellow candidates have well over $20,000 raised. I don't think it should cost that much money to get elected in a city council race. And that doesn't even include, you know, any PAC money that might be coming through to them in the form of mailers and other things that I would anticipate some of these PACs are going to do for them. But yeah, I'm all for keeping it where it is. I'm all for keeping it a task to get elected to city council.
Sure.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So term limits.
Term limits.
Right now they're proposing four consecutive terms. Would be the term limit for city council here.
Correct, and that will not, if I understand it correctly, affect any incumbents. If you're already elected, you're not held to that. But in the future, anybody elected in the future will have a maximum of 4 terms, which is 16 years. My understanding is that you can take 4 years off and then serve another 16 years if you can live that long. So 32 of 36 years you can serve. I think that yeah, that's fine. You know, I'll vote for it, but I vote for it a little bit with my nose plugged, because unlike at national and even state levels, where people become career politicians and become career senators and assemblymen and presidents and that type of thing, city council is not that way. City council is in effect a volunteer position, and people probably don't realize this, but the stipend for the city council members currently rides at only $600 per month. The mayor gets an extra $100 for $700 a month. City council members do not have an office. Only the mayor has an office at City Hall. It is a volunteer part-time position, and that said, I suspect that $600 currently probably translates to about $1 an hour for people like Councilmember Moran and Miklos. These people don't know it, but they go to all the Sacramento Council of Governments meetings. They serve on boards. They go to ribbon cuttings. They go to Eagle Scout Courts of Honor. They go to Girl Scout Gold Star ceremonies. They go to a lot of church groups, and they have to speak before an awful lot of these service organizations. They have to do a lot, and they work a lot for this city. And it's very sad to see comments from people on Facebook that say that, you know, they never see them out in public. I think it's shameful, because they are out in public. They're out in public a lot, and they have been for decades. And my hat's off to them.
I think there's definitely a perception of being out in public and being on social media. I think the people that say that they don't see them say that they don't see them because they're not on social media all the time.
Correct.
But like you said, you're right. They're out at ribbon cuttings. They're out at different events.
Right.
So yeah, and being part of city council just kind of thrusts you into that lifestyle. Then you have to go to these events because you want to hear from your constituents. You want to hear from the different communities that are out there. And,
of course.
And rub elbows, and that's really where you're going to get the best comments, the best questions are from the people. Speaking of questions, if you're actually watching this at any point in the broadcast, feel free to ask any questions that you'd like to ask for Scott. If we don't get to them during this broadcast, he'll go back onto the feed and answer all your questions personally, so that you guys can get a better understanding of who Scott is and what he brings to City Council if he's elected. Yeah.
Councilmember Howell likes to joke that if you don't have her phone number, you're probably the only person in town that doesn't. And I know, because I know all these folks, I know that they get emails and calls all the time. You know, often it's a little issue they have they're very specific neighborhood, or traffic's coming by their house too fast or something, and they are incredibly responsive to all of that. Yes, they may not be on social media as much as people like, but I think they're working towards it, and the city's doing a good job of facilitating that. So, but anyway, yeah, I'll vote for term limits, but only because it's 16 years. We are about to lose Mayor Miklos, who has essentially volunteered 24 years of his service to this city, and Councilmember Moore his another 16 years, and my math says that is 40 years right there. If we lose Councilmember Howell, that's another 20. And so 60 years of knowledge and wisdom and experience and historical perspective could be lost, in addition to all of their contacts that they've created all the way back to Washington. And it's very disheartening to me when I'm walking door to door to hear people have the attitude to throw the bums out. And it's disheartening to me because these people have given their lives, the bulk of their lives, to the city and to the people of the city. And one guy said, you know, those guys have never done one darn thing for me. He didn't say darn, by the way, but he said they haven't done one darn thing for me, and my jaw dropped, because I thought, how can you say that? You know, do you not live in this city? You know, imagine this city if we didn't have the 2 new bridge crossings we've had. People complain about the traffic. Imagine if we still had to funnel our way through up Sunrise Hazel or around about Francisco Boulevard or across Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, I don't think people really realize how big of a deal that new bridge is, and how much work went into it, and how many times they had to go to Washington to talk to, you know, senators and
that basically
lawmakers.
didn't cost the city of Folsom people anything.
Yeah,
it was all money acquired by the efforts of the city staff and the current council members that are about to retire. So I applaud you guys. So.
Yes, and I certainly hope, and I talked with Andy a little bit after the forum and said, boy, I sure hope, you know, with potentially three new candidates coming in, that you guys will make yourself available to provide guidance and support and help and contacts, and like you said, you know, those contacts, that network that they've built over the years, that's hard to put together. I mean, that's a lot of elbow grease and shaking hands and being there in the right place, and
it's going to be a great loss for the city.
Yeah,
you know, I begged them to stay, but you know, they made it clear a couple years ago that they were on their way out.
Yeah,
and they did it purposely so they could get, you know, the city could groom candidates to come up, and we ended up with 12. So
yeah.
So we're good to go.
Well, we got 12 great candidates, and I'm looking forward to the race. So let's talk now about the city sales tax that's being proposed.
Okay, I was a little surprised to see the opposition to it.
Yeah.
Of which I am one. I don't like it. I read the proposal. I read the ballot initiative, and I know the city's looking at, they've had to deal with the great loss of funding from the state years ago during the recession. And I think the city has persevered. I think they have done an amazing job. The city finance director, I call him a rock star, and he doesn't like that, but people have no idea how much he's done for this city. Yeah. And he's been amazing, and we weathered the storm. We weathered the storm with a reserve that was still in place. Mm-hmm. And I said during the forum, from my perspective as a resident here in Folsom, I think the city's level of service has actually improved during that period of time. Mm-hmm. Through outstanding leadership and management of all the department heads. I mean, everything improved. They focused on customer service, and I think they did a great job. But this was proposed, a half-cent increase for 10-year period. It's estimated it would raise about $100 million, and translates to 8 point something every year with inflation and everything. But that's a lot of money. And it is, from what I read, it is for basically anything that the city decides to spend it on. And that's where I have a problem with it. I think it's too open, it's too unspecific, it's too, the term is too long, and it's too much. I think the city's running well now. I think that if we identify some more specific needs, which is certainly doable, but I think if we had more specific needs, I would be much more inclined to support maybe a 1/4 cent sales tax for 3 to 5 years, for a specified purpose. But that said, if the voters of Folsom decide that this is a great idea, then of course, and if I'm elected, of course, I'm going to have to really make sure that it's spent wisely.
So you'd like to see some specifics put in that proposed tax increase that said these funds are going to go specifically for these parks or these programs or whatnot.
Right, whatever it is.
Okay.
And you know, nobody knows what the future holds, but if there was, the thing I see most likely would be something along the lines of public safety. And you know, if something, you know, again, you can't predict the future, but if something crazy happened where we had to suddenly hire, you know, 30% more police and fire people, then, you know, that type of thing could be used for that, you know. So it's hard to say, but right now I'm not a supporter of the tax increase, and I will support term limits with a little concern, and I'm against raising the campaign finance contribution. So.
Very good. Okay, so you mentioned public safety. So you want to touch a little bit more on public safety and what programs and things that are happening here that you'd like to change, keep the same, or improve?
Yeah, of course. We're in the uniform for 35 years. I became pretty darn familiar with Folsom PD, and through our interaction with the fire department, I became pretty involved with the fire department on several occasions. But I wore the badge and I wore the ballistic vest for 35 years. I made a promise to myself I'd never go out of the house without that vest on. Owed that to my family. When I started here in 1983, we wore a khaki uniform and a hideous patch. That was actually, I know who the guy that designed it. We drove around police cars that were white with an old Western style star on the door with 6 balls, and old Western style writing. It definitely made us look like a rodeo in Cowtown. Yeah. So it was nice when the I forget which chief it was. I've served under 9 chiefs. I forget which one it was that decided to upgrade our uniforms. I think it was Barker. But anyway, so we upgraded our uniforms and patrol cars. And I've watched the department grow a heck of a lot. When I started here, we were in the old police department, which was down below the old city hall, which has changed an awful lot. I helped a little bit with the design of our new facility. The old one would flood. We would have floods in the locker room. We had tarantulas crawling in there from the zoo. Oh. Yeah, the dispatchers weren't too crazy about the tarantulas, but when they needed to take a break for a bio break or something, they have to call in a patrol unit from the streets because there was one dispatcher on in our old 911 center. And things have changed a lot. But through that, our response times have always been quite short compared to other regions. Our fire department has been absolutely stellar over the years. The quality of the officers has gradually improved to the absolute highest levels now. And no longer do you get some guy that used to be in wrestling or football and throw a uniform on him. Now it's quite a process to get hired. And the quality of officers has been incredible. They have to have such a higher skill level now with technology, and they're often called upon to be family counselors and marital counselors and the bad guy, and they have to know traffic, and they have to know how to write hundreds of types of reports. But this department has grown to be one of the premier agencies in all of Northern California, and highly respected now. That said, I know that they've also had a challenge hiring people lately. When I started, there was about 600 people that took the written test, and then it got down to about 300, and then from there, I think they took about 50 into the academy, of which we graduated about 30, and only about half of those were picked up by agencies. Now they have a much smaller pool to choose from, and hiring what they call laterals from other agencies has become quite a challenge for them. And that is based upon multiple pay structure and benefit structures that have been negotiated over the years with the city through the union, and so where this agency used to be up on the high end of the pay scale and the benefit scale, now they are closer towards the low end. And so what they call attracting talent from other agencies has become a challenge.
Okay.
And so I'd like to see that changed. But we have great short response times. This is a safe city, and I'm so pleased to have been a part of that. We call it a badge city, and the reason we call that is because I don't think people have any idea how many badges live in this town. FBI agents, federal marshals, CHP commissioners, ex-CHP commissioners, CHP officers, sheriff's deputies from 3 or 4 counties around here. Almost any day of the week, if you're observant, you'll see canine officers from SAC PD and Elk Grove PD driving through our streets.
Yep.
Not to mention, several hundred, if not thousands, of correctional officers live in town. Why do they live here? I want people to ask that question. Why do they want to live here? Why do all these badges want to live in this city? And it's because crime rates are extremely low. Criminals get caught. This is one of the few communities I can think of that would, if you drive around, you'll see a lot of thin blue line flags flying from houses. Yep. You're not going to see that in other neighborhoods in Sacramento and South Sacramento. I felt comfortable about the city enough and its safety that I moved my parents here about 12 years ago. And they moved from South Sacramento, where I grew up. And they were quite stunned, not only of how safe it was and quiet it was, but even when they went to the store, they said people would hold the door open for them and help them get out of the car. And they were absolutely thrilled with how polite the people of Folsom are. So one other thing I wanted to mention is my wife is a marathon runner, and trains all the time and just loves to run recreationally. And she came home a few Saturdays ago from a running club she belongs to, and there was, I think she said there was 18 people there, and they went around and asked everybody to say where they were from and everything, and only 6 of them were from Folsom. So the question is, why does everybody want to come here? And they want to come here because it's safe and it's nice, and we have beautiful trails. So public safety is the root of everything, in my opinion. Without it, you're not going to have strong commerce. You're not going to have nice neighborhoods. Right. Public safety is everything.
So that should lead us to another issue that seems to be rearing its head a lot more lately, which is the homeless issue. So anything that you can touch upon, public safety, homeless, what can we do to help solve this? And there are many circumstances that put people in a position of being homeless, not necessarily mental health being the problem. So what can we do?
It is such an incredibly complicated issue, and I feel it is so much bigger than Folsom. I don't know if people are aware of this, but 25% of our nation's homeless live in California.
Wow.
And it's not just the weather, folks. California has made it a friendly place for homeless people to live. Certain cities have gone way beyond that. But there's something about it that brings them to our region. I just heard in walking the neighborhoods yesterday that there was a homeless person in a car that was parking in my neighborhood and was moving through the area and parking in different places. And so, you know, that's disturbing. You know, I wouldn't want to know there's a homeless person in a car in my cul-de-sac. Just because they're opportunists and you know, they're desperate, and that's not good.
Right.
You know, but why would that person want to be here? I thought about it, and my wife and I talked about it, and that person would want to be here because it's a safe place.
Yeah.
You know, if I had a car and I was homeless, I would want to park in Folsom. You know, it's a beautiful community and a generous community. People are, you know, very giving in this town. So, you know, it's such a complicated issue. But I have interviewed some of the officers that are assigned to the homeless. We have an absolutely outstanding program through a police department that does everything they can to minimize the issue. They reach out to them, they talk to them, they see if they're candidates for the services that are available here in this city.
And what kind of services are currently available for?
A lot. But I attended the HEART meeting. HEART is
which is H-A-R-T.
H-A-R-T.
Yep.
And I attended that. It's Homeless Assistance Resource Team, and it's a large network. It's not just in Folsom. It's out there everywhere. But I attended that meeting, and it basically just reiterated everything I already knew, which was that first of all, there's some amazing volunteers right here in Folsom, from former Fire Chief Dan Haverty all the way down. There's some great people that are doing what they can. Again, I don't think the Folsom citizens are quite aware of just all the programs that are available, but what HEART does is through the faith-based churches in town, they've set up a rotational system for housing, especially in the winter housing, to get them off the streets, out of the green belts and out from under the bushes behind Rite Aid, and bring them into shelter. They help them with meals. They help them if they're candidates and if they want help, if they reach out for help, which the police department officers are encouraging them to do. They get them to come and meet with the Sacramento Self-Help Housing representative, again, another service organization that the city is contracted with. There's a person right here in Folsom that is full-time in Folsom. Her name is Jefflin. And Jefflin goes out and rides with the officers and goes out and contacts these folks and sees how they can help. At the meeting the other night, they mentioned that finding them a job is not really an issue. That's not the problem. The problem is finding them housing.
Yeah.
And encouraging them to stay on the right track and keep moving forward. And I believe there's a very small percentage of them that are actually good candidates for that. But those that are, we should do what we can to help them. The officer I talked to, I asked him, I said, what can we do? What do you see as this issue? And he made two huge points to me. One is he said, this issue is not going away. He said, we're going to have to face it. We're going to have to deal with it. And he felt that what is severely lacking right now is transitional housing for those folks that are candidates for this.
Yeah.
And currently there's only transitional housing in Rancho Cordova and way down in Sacramento, and there's a long, long waiting list. So there's people they can get off the streets right now that have nowhere to go. And somebody commented on Facebook that, you know, I bet Scott Bailey wouldn't like to have one in his neighborhood, a transitional housing. And you're absolutely right. It troubles me to see that kind of comment because I do not want one in my neighborhood. But I think if we explored it as a city, I think there are some places we could put them. I have a couple of ideas, but I think that there's a few spots we could look at getting some transitional housing for these folks.
Right.
And through the HEART program and other organizations, there are people that are willing to do the construction, the remodeling, and also maintain the facilities and keep them clean and check on them daily. So there are services out there that we are not utilizing to the fullest ability right now, but it is a problem. It's growing. The number was thrown out the other night of about 60 homeless people identified in Folsom. I've also heard numbers as high as 128, but they all acknowledge that it's very difficult to put a number on it because so many of them are just kind of passing through the region, and some of them are in cars, and the ones that are in cars are very hard to identify.
Right.
So, but the ones that are walking around, like I even saw out here before we came in today, those are local folks.
Yeah.
And there's areas here. There is no camping in Folsom. There's ordinance against it.
Yep.
And the camps that the police department finds, you know, they try to shut them down, and they hire a county or an agency to come do a hazmat cleanup because there's usually needles out there, and there's all kinds of really foul things that are hazardous waste.
Right.
And so it costs a lot of money. We're currently spending a lot of money to clean up these places. And so, again, it's a regional issue. I need to encourage folks to get involved. If you're sympathetic to it, don't just complain about it. Get involved. Join this HEART program. They're looking for mentors. They're looking for people that can help with food and acquiring all kinds of services for them. So don't just complain. Get involved.
Yeah.
And together, I think, working with the regions and even the state of California, I think we can make it a better place. So.
And speaking of housing, so obviously another big topic is south of 50.
Right.
The last city council meeting that we had was finalizing the 2035 plan.
Right.
So traffic, everyone's talking about traffic and water. We seem to be okay for right now as far as our rainfall from last year and the height of the lake. So what can we expect? What do you foresee, and what's your ideas for south of 50?
The height of the lake is a funny thing you mentioned because you know, as a sailor, loves that lake. I finally sold my boat because I got so frustrated with having to pull it out of the marina every you know, it was only in the water for, you know, even 2-3 months at a time.
Right.
And then it got so low it was difficult to sail. But the city did such a great job of prepping and putting a barge that could pump the water from the lowest levels out. And fortunately, they didn't have to use it, but they were ready to. And so hats off to the city for good forward thinking in that. South of 50 in traffic, you know, I started here in 1983 as a patrolman and driving around those funky looking cars. Traffic wasn't too big of an issue. I think we only had 4 or 5 streetlights in the whole city. And at the city council meeting the other night, I think they said we now have 123 or something like that in the city. But I worked a lot of fatal crashes, especially the first few nights I worked. There's a lot of fatalities because we had 4-way stop sign at Folsom Dam Road, Folsom Auburn, and that was a high-speed road, and we had a lot of head-ons out on Green Valley Road. But I like to joke about people that you don't really know what a traffic issue is, because when I started here, probably at least a half dozen times, we got calls of cattle on East Bidwell Street that broke through the fences, and often we had to deal with bulls out there.
Oh, really?
And a couple times they actually had to put them down, which is not easy to do. Those bulls are hard to put down, but there's many a time I had to stand out there for a couple hours waiting for the farmer to respond, the rancher to respond, and mend his fence. Get the thing back in behind the fence and mend his fence. We've had such improvements in traffic as it is. I mean, I think it was around 1986 there was an incredible deluge of rain, and I remember patrolling that night, and we found cars all over the city stranded, and I realized that 5 of the 6 ways in and out of our city were flooded and impassable, either by mudslides or something. The only way to get in or out of the city for a few hours that night was Folsom Auburn Road to the north. Everything else was shut down, and I was starting to get pretty worried for the emergency services here in Folsom if somebody needed to get to a hospital or something. But under our leadership of our traffic manager, Mark, right now, Rakovan, the plan for smart traffic improvements is already well on its way.
And what is smart traffic?
Video monitoring, smart traffic lights that that can adjust, not just on timers. They did a very good presentation the other night at City Council about that, which I would encourage everybody to have a look at on replay. But they've got a great plan for the future here. Level of service is often referred to. The citizens of Folsom have made it very clear in the plan, the 2035 plan, that they do not want 6-lane roads coming through this city. They don't want major, wide, high-speed roads. They want to keep things slower moving. They want to keep it safer for bicyclists and pedestrians and motorists. Level D is actually listed as the preferred target level for urban areas. Yes, it means a little more congestion, a little more weight, but improving level D to level C would require an incredible amount of money. They're talking like $80 million.
Oh, wow.
At the council meeting the other night, and require much wider roadways. I'm not for that. I'm for level D is acceptable to me. Getting on to the Folsom Ranch project, they currently have Alder Creek Road planned. That's going to be a parallel road just south of Highway 50. It's going to be somewhat similar to Iron Point Road north of 50. So that's going to be a pretty major thoroughfare to handle the east-west traffic. Additionally, there's going to be 2 other east-west arteries for that area, which will be built concurrently with the need. Developers and landowners out there through fees have been paying for that infrastructure and will be paying for the infrastructure. Caltrans is increasing carpool lanes in all directions. Light rail has already improved some light rail coverage to Folsom. Interchanges are currently being planned for, and we're in the Sacramento Bee the other day, is coming sooner than I thought. I think they're talking about 2023 or something like that for the interchanges at Empire Ranch Road, and the one I've been waiting for since I moved here, the Oak Avenue Parkway interchange. And of course, the Capitol Southeast Connector expansion, which I currently use at least twice a week to get down to All Points South of Sacramento and my other job. They're expanding that, widening it all the way, and that's a beltway, which makes total sense. That's where you want a high-speed, wide road that's on the outer loops of any urban area. They should have one on the north of Sacramento too.
Right.
Getting out to the airport from All Points and Roseville, Rockland, but we're going to have one that's going to benefit this city. So I'm loving traffic. As far as south of 50 goes, I love it. We've got beautiful plan for it. 82 acres of it's going to be commercial and businesses. 3 new schools, 2 new fire stations, a new police substation. There's talk of putting the city corporation yard out there. It's way down the road, but that's going to be a great place to put it. I feel the water issues have been thoroughly vetted. I'm very comfortable with the water issues. I could get into that all you want. But people need to realize that the citizens of Folsom have given their overwhelming support of the project. And the people that are moving there want to be part of our city. They want to enjoy our city. And so far, I'm hearing 90% of them have been other Folsom residents.
Yeah, so 90% of the homes that have sold are actually Folsom residents currently, and they're just looking to find a new home south of 50. And you know what typically happens here in Folsom is whenever there's a new development, and I've been here since 2001, and I've had family here since 1992. So I'm aware of every new development that comes online. The current residents complain because they don't want the traffic. I mean, this is not new. This is something that happens with every single development that comes online. Right.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a gentleman walking the neighborhoods that was complaining about everything south of 50, and he, there's not this. They didn't plan this well, and I moved here because it was a small town, and I like the small town feel. And I let him talk, as I always do, and then I pointed out to him. I said, "Sir, do you realize you're standing in a driveway of a beautiful home in an absolutely gorgeous neighborhood that is one of the newer neighborhoods that probably really upset the people that were ahead of you?"
Yeah.
And he thought about that a minute, and he said, "He sounds like you know what you're talking about." But anyway, he turned out, he said he wants to help me get elected. So in a nutshell,
you're pretty confident with the traffic and our levels and the availability of water and our city's ability to tap into the resource if need be. Now, from what I understand, I do believe we are allocated 6% of the water in that. Is that correct? And then we only use 2%
development?
for the water from Folsom Lake.
I've heard a couple different figures, but we have 1913 water rights to the American River water, which is Folsom Lake. And I'm hearing 27,000 acre feet is ours under our rights. I've also heard a figure as high as 34,000 acre feet, but I'm comfortable at saying 27,000 acre feet. The developers south of 50 were, through negotiations with, again, our great city leadership, they agreed to pay for infrastructure improvements and improve leaking pipes and old rusty systems that have been around since probably the 30s or 40s or even beyond. And they have recouped at least 5,200 acre feet just from leakage. The Willow Hill Reservoir alone was losing 1 million gallons.
Oh, wow.
And they've improved that. It's stopped the leakage. So that's the low end estimate is 5,200 acre feet. The mid-range estimate was 10,000 acre feet. So increasing the south of 50 residents over time, over 15, 20 years, the water usage will of course increase. I'm very happy with the plans to irrigate the common areas with gray water. I'm very happy with, I went out there and visited those model homes, and the front yard landscaping is all going to be drought tolerant. Low flush toilets, I mean, everything they can do. But I'm confident there's plenty of water out there.
Yeah.
That said, of course, if we have a major drought again, we're all going to have to continue conserving, as I've done at my own home.
Right.
So, yeah, we all need to do our part. So.
Very good. Okay, so we're right about at the top of the hour as far as our 1 hour interview goes. So why don't we take this opportunity to let you close out and just talk about what you want people to know about you, about your candidacy, and your views on the quality of life in Folsom.
Sure. I don't think you need to know much more about me, except that I love this city. I love my city. I love our city. The quality of life here for me has been outstanding. I talk to people all the time in my other job that when we talk about the subject of where you live, I tell them Folsom. And the response I get is always, "Oh, I love Folsom. Like, we go up there for the restaurants, we go up there for the kayaking, we go, you know, the list is long, and it's the envy of the region by far. I mean, there's no. I travel all over Northern California and even some of Western Nevada, and I don't see anything even close to this city. I call it the 95630 experience. I've lived it. It's safe, as we discussed. It's well planned. My property values have been stellar. My first home I purchased in 1986, and I sold it 4 years later for an incredible profit, which I rolled over to my current home. It's beautiful. The tagline, "distinctive by nature," means something to me. You know, I'm a kayaker. I like to hike. I like to ride my bike. We've got a great great commerce, which is historically mandatory for any thriving community, in my opinion. Restaurants, stores, jobs, unemployment rates are incredibly low. Businesses, tourism, hotel occupancy rates, the transient occupancy tax, which people don't even know exists, but that's a big source of our income. Technology center of the region now. Our parks, award-winning parks year after year. 2 lakes, bike trails, hiking trails. My wife and I ride our bikes. We like to do it late at night as the sun's setting, as we watch nature come out. We watch the deer show up. We're financially stable, $90 million economy. We're a faith-based community. There's churches are super active. Youth and adult sports opportunities, crazy. The service organizations in town, the Lions, the Rotaries, the Elks, incredible organizations.
The
Eagles, the Moose, the VFW, amazing organization. Arts, theaters, the Harris Center, Symphony, this fun zoo, which I love to bring people to. Our history, our local history, our cultural history, everything from Negro Bar to the Chinese Diggins, Chinese cemetery, the immigrants that came here from all over for the gold rush, senior center, library, fantastic schools. That's what people I talk to all over the area say. And the city services are amazing. The water quality is incredible. That's why Geigy Khan and Kikkoman all came to town, because the water quality. They tested it all over the place. Drink the tap water here, and then drink it in South Sacramento in the Pocket area, or in West Sacramento, where the restaurants give me a glass of water. I can't even drink it. It's terrible. But here I prefer tap water over filtered water. But basically, I just want to let everybody know, let's just keep it going. Let's keep Folsom going. The direction it's going now. I love it.
Very good. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And really appreciate you coming out and talking to us and giving us a more well-rounded idea of Scott Bailey, the person, the resident, and the candidate for City Council. So once again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And again, if you have questions, feel free to post them down below. And either Scott or someone from his team will get back to you and give you the answers that you're looking for. And we'd also like to thank Rocky with the Kebab House here in Folsom for providing the location for us here today, and the baklava and the Greek coffee. Phenomenal host, great place. We hope you give them some business and some love. Long time business here in Folsom. So once again, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We hope you have a fabulous day, and again, get educated, because November's coming up soon, and we want you to make the right choice for the city of Folsom. And again, thanks for tuning in. Adam Frick, Folsom TV. Have a great week, everyone.
All righty.